One of my favorite topics is automated document factories. And it goes back to the 90s when we were first talking about them. And the requirement, I think, was well understood that the more you could automate and the more you could normalize the process of moving documents through each process, the more efficient you would be, the less likely you were to lose documents, make mistakes. But a lot of the technology wasn't there yet, even when we were trying to claim it was. So if you're sitting here today and you're looking out across the landscape, when somebody uses the term automated document factory, what are we trying to say? What is it that is that makes it an automated document factory? It can't just be that you have some PDF files and you have some JDF files. There must be more to it than that.
Well, that's right. It's a matter of tracking and knowing the details of those objects and being able to present the information on the state of those objects automatically to interested parties, which could be just the operations people, might be the actual consumer of that information. But it goes, I think, quite a bit beyond that, in that the automated document factory involves quite a bit more now than it did, say, 20 years ago, because the problem set that people were trying to solve back then was more of a point-to-point kind of workflow. And now the output management space and the customer communication space is really driven by multiple needs for repurposing and use of that document. And that's one of the reasons PDF is so useful, because it's both a really good print format, but also an electronic delivery format. And
that's a really good point, though, because I think when we started talking automated document factories, we assumed it was print, right? We assumed that what we were trying to do was print output management. But today, almost every Solimar customer I've ever met is actually doing multi-channel delivery. So their document factory has to be a whole lot smarter than it had to be when it only, say it only worried about print pretty complex in itself. But when you're also trying to deliver out through email and to websites and maybe even to apps and through MMS and SMS, that factory has to be really smart.
Yeah, well, and a lot of the initial automation was taking stuff that had to be pre-printed and eliminating that. And the automation was, okay, let's get rid of all the real estate and pre-printing and all that kind of stuff and just go to a white paper workflow.
Right.
And so that's been an important part of the ADF story that PDF has been able to fulfill, moving people from those legacy content streams into much more efficient workflows where you're not having to deal with all the different kinds of paper, but also upgrading everyone's presentation capabilities by the use of color inkjet, obviously. It's really been quite amazing, the transition there. But there's still a lot of room for individual organizations to evolve their document factories. Many of them still rely on antiquated models for tracking information, setting it up, and managing it through.
You hit the nail on the head. They do suffer quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I want to touch back, though. You made a really interesting comment, because you said, inkjet brought a lot of capability, and certainly the cost model of inkjet, color inkjet, opened up the door to a lot of that preprint replacement, and but it also introduced some complexity to the workflows. So what's the Solimar secret to smart workflows?
Well, there may be a few secrets there, but I think one of the things that you're well aware of is that there's a confluence of workflows, some that have been variable in nature and some that have been more static in nature, commercial print. And people with these devices are finding that they can converge opportunities. And that's where the power of JDF and PDF plays together really importantly, because both are well positioned to deal with either transactional data or more traditional static kinds of data. And
do I have to throw my whole workflow out to get to a smart workflow that is sort of an ADF?
well, no, of course you don't, but you'll find that as you move to this environment, the stuff that's expensive to maintain, you won't have to maintain. So you'll become much more efficient. You'll be able to take on new business. A lot of organizations struggle to bring on business because of the amount of work they have to do to maintain or onboard into the systems that they have. And so as you migrate to these PDF-centric and JDF-centric workflows, your ability to onboard new revenue streams, as well as reduce your costs in managing them, grows dramatically. And we have case studies out there that talk about this very issue.
And that sounds like a really amazing Solimar secret right there.